Work is a joint work with people from University of Toronto and Microsoft Research. The idea is actually very simple. This work was done more than 3 years ago, and it was a qualitative study. But the idea was very simple. Whenever we go to a hospital, we are waiting to see the doctor, and nobody likes that feeling. Nobody wants to wait. It's very anxious before meeting the doctor. So how can we best use that time that we have before meeting the doctor, right? So to avoid these long wait times and anxiety, we have built a chatbot where we can interact with the user. This has three benefits. Benefit number one, we are engaging the people rather than them looking at their phone and be feeling fidgety. They can actually have an engagement system where they can engage and talk about what's wrong with them, why they have come to the hospital, etc. Advantage number two is that this actually preps them in actually what we should tell to the doctor before meeting them, right? Sometimes when we meet a doctor, we don't tell all the symptoms that we are facing, right? Yeah. But when you have already done one round of explaining to a bot, it becomes easier to explain to a doctor as well. The third advantage is that whatever questions or chat has happened, we can summarize it and show it to the doctor, right? In India and all over the world, the number of doctors is always small, and all over the world, our average age is increasing. People are only going to get old, and they are going to visit hospitals more often, but the number of doctors is not increasing at that pace, right? So how can we best use of the time of the doctor that we have, right? So when you meet the doctor, instead of the initial few interactions where you talk about the general symptoms, he already has a summary of what is wrong with you, and then you can ask leading questions.
Yeah, who is, just curiosity, who is holding the data?
Yeah, so
in the chat.
yeah, in this system it will be held with the hospital, right? Okay. Not with the system, because this is a proprietary system of that hospital, right? And to design this experiment, this was a qualitative study. So generally there can be two kinds of study. One is what you call as hypothesis testing, right? Where you ask very narrow set of question, and you have a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis, and then you do statistical analysis to prove if a particular intervention is good or not, right? Yeah. This is a step before that, right? This is a qualitative study where we don't even know what questions to ask, what question to do a hypothesis testing for, right? So here we ask very simple questions like, how was your experience like, right? And under the hood, the system, the pre-consultation bot that we built, under the hood, it can either be a GPT or finally a grad student, right? They don't know who they're interacting with, right? It can either be either of the two. It's a complete black box, right? So it's a blind test of how they are performing, right? And the first question was, how was your performance? And if you look at the performance of both the chatbot and the medical grad student, they're mostly happy with both the things, right? So it was not very different. And if you think about it, no medical student wants to ask the same question 100 times in a day, right? So this is not something that people look forward to. So this is something which is amenable for automation through chatbots, right? The second question that was asked was, how did it help you in prepare for doctor consultation? And that's where it was very clear that it helped me answer the questions. I was much better prepared to use the time of the short consultation window that I have with the doctor. I used it much better, right? The third thing was very cool that generally if you use ChatGPT kind of system, you will notice that it is unnecessarily very supportive of you. It will say that, oh, great question. Oh, I didn't think about it. Very cool, right? But in a medical setup, you don't want somebody telling you, oh, I'm so sorry that you are having this trouble, right? That's very insensitive, right? So sometimes there is this fake empathy which GPT tends to give you, which is not better to avoid in this setting, right? When you go to a good doctor, they are not trying to give any flowery language. They are coming to the point, right? So that was some observation that we had, right? Now the cool part here is that this very, as I said, the study was done 3 years ago. The next deployment is going to be actually with a hospital, a super specialty hospital in Bangalore, and there we are going to design a lot more grounded system. If you look at these questions, these are very generic, right? But when you go to a super specialty domain like pediatric or rhinology or these things like that, the questions have to be very pointed. And we are not the domain experts. The doctors are the domain experts. So they are going to give us the knowledge base to have this GPT ask the right amount of questions at the right time, right? So that is going to get deployed in a couple of hospitals, and that is the current status of this work.